Hi, my name is Scott and welcome. This presentation is on energy balance, body composition, and weight management. First, let's take a look at the statistics of obesity in the United States. This is from the Center of Disease Control, the CDC, and this is over a 30-year period of time. Starting with 1985, as we can see, there are two colors, a light blue and a medium shaded blue. And the medium shaded blue is predominantly in the eastern area of the United States, and that is 10 to 14% of this area is obese. And the lighter shaded blue is less than 10% obese. Now, jumping from 1985 to 1995, we can see it is a statistical difference. That we have on the eastern side of the United States is predominantly 15 to 19% obese, and the whole western side of the United States is in between 10 and 14% obese. So going from 1995 to 2005, now we've added some more colors to help indicate a greater percentage of obesity. We have the darker shade of red, Mississippi and Louisiana and West Virginia here now are greater than 30% obese, where the other shades of red on the south central and southeastern portion of the United States are in between 25 and 29% obese. And then the rest of the United States, predominantly the western and the northwest, is in between 20 and 24% obese. Now, going from 2005 to 2011 with a self-reported prevalence of obesity in the United States, here we've added another color on here. It's not there yet. They're preparing for greater than 35% obese, but here we are in the south central United States at 30 to 35% obese, and the yellow is 25 to 30% obese, with the remainder of the United States being 20 to 25% obese. Now, 68% of the adults in the United States are overweight, and half of that, 34%, are obese. So, energy balance. This looks like a very simple equation. Intake equals output, but as we will soon see, it gets a little more involved than just how much you take in and how much you put out. But basically, that is it. A positive energy balance is weight gain, and a negative energy balance is a weight loss. You are taking in less than you put out. In a positive energy balance, you're taking in more than your energy is burned. Energy equilibrium, that's your energy intake is equal to your energy output. That means you're taking in as much energy as you are burning that energy. Now, there are two ways to measure energy. One is direct calorimetry, and another is indirect calorimetry. As we spoke earlier in the first presentation, this is a bomb calorimeter. What they do is they put the food in this vat, they set it on fire, and the water will raise temperature. For every 1 kilogram of water that increases 1 degree Celsius, that will burn 1 kilocalorie. So in direct calorimetry, that measures the amount of heat released when a food burns, and it measures heat output. It is expensive and complex. Another way to measure energy burned is indirect calorimetry, and this measures the amount of oxygen consumed when a food burns. Oxygen consumption can be used to calculate the amount of energy expended by the body. So, depending upon how much oxygen you breathe in, you can indirectly calculate the amount of energy that you're going to burn. And this is an estimate of 1 liter of oxygen consumed, breathed in, will burn 4.85 kilocalories. You'll see in a future slide that it will be 1 liter of oxygen is equal to approximately 5 kilocalories burned. So body fat. Excuse me. If energy intake equals energy output, body weight remains stable. If energy intake is greater than energy output, the surplus is stored as fat. To decrease body fat, more energy needs to be expended than it is taken in. Now, here is a rough estimate of 1 pound of body fat is equal to 3,500 kilocalories. Now, where do we get that 3,500 kilocalories? Let me show you. 1 pound is equal to 454 grams. And 1 pound of body fat is not 100%, it's actually 87% fat. So therefore, 454 grams times 0.87, 87%, equals 395 grams. And then if you take the 9 kilocalories per kilogram, multiply that by 395, then you'll get 3,555 kilocalories per 1 pound of body fat. So they do a rough estimate of 1 pound is equal to 3,500 kilocalories. Okay, energy balance. This consists of basal metabolism, physical activity, thermic effect of food, and thermogenesis. Starting with basal metabolism. Actually, this is another representation of intake equals output. And the intake will take in carbohydrates, which is predominantly 50%, 55%. Fat is 30%, protein is 15, 16%, and alcohol is drink moderately. And output, the greatest part of output, and we'll see the percentages coming up here in a minute, is basal metabolism, physical activity, thermic effect of food, and thermogenesis. So your intake of your carbohydrate, fat, proteins, and your alcohol, you will try to balance that with your basal metabolism, physical activity, thermic effect of food, and thermogenesis. Now this is a pie chart about what the percentage is of each one of these that we use for a total energy expenditure. And this is basal metabolism. It's at 60 to 70%, which is the majority of our energy expenditure. And then we have physical activity, which is the second majority of our physical energy expenditure, and that is 25 to 40%. Thermal effect of food is 5 to 10%, and that is very small, and that is kind of like a tax that we have to pay for processing our nutrients, our foods to nutrients. So basal metabolism. This is your basal metabolic rate, BMR. The minimum energy expended to keep an awake person that is rested after an overnight fast in a comfortable temperature alive. So energy is needed to maintain all basic life processes such as the heartbeat, respiration, body temperature, intestinal function, liver function, kidney filtration, and the nervous system and others. So the BMR is approximately, like I just said, is 60 to 70% of total energy requirements. And energy requirements may vary between individuals. And this is a list of the variations that could happen between different individuals. Age, as our age increases, our BMR decreases. As the body surface area is increased, our BMR increases. So that means the taller and leaner you are, you will have a greater basal metabolic rate. The shorter in stature, you will have a slower metabolic rate. Growth, pregnancy, children, adolescents, that increases your BMR. Lean body mass, again, the leaner you are, the more muscle you have as compared to fatty tissue, then you will have an increased BMR. Gender, males normally have a greater amount of lean body mass, therefore they normally have a higher BMR. Calorie intake, fasting and starvation, that will decrease your BMR. Stresses such as infection, disease, and some medications will also increase your BMR. Hormones such as thyroxine and premenstrual hormones increase the BMR. Nervous system activity such as epinephrine and norepinephrine increases your BMR, and use of caffeine and tobacco will also increase your BMR. So all of these factors will be different with individuals, and that will indicate differences in their basal metabolic rate. So this is a breakdown from energy and expenditure in basal metabolism, and this is the liver is approximately 27% of our BMR, the brain 19%, skeletal muscle 18%, kidneys about 10% of our BMR, heart and all the other organs together is approximately 19% of our BMR for a total of 100%. Now how do we calculate our basal metabolic rate? Well, this is a Harris-Benedict equation. It is a metric equation, and it is a formula that we use for men and women, and it comes from Mr. Benedict. This study was done in 1918. It is a landmark study, and this is a link to the journal article for that with the National Institute of Health. So let's look at the calculation here. Men, it's 66.47 plus 13.75 times the weight, plus 5 times the height, minus 6.76 times the age. Now this is the formula. And women is 655.1 plus 9.56 times weight, plus 1.85 times the height and minus 4.68 times the age. So here's an example calculation I've done. This is for men. So we're going to input a couple. Here again, we have to use weight, height, and age. So I'm going to use, actually, we're going to put in 154 pounds. Since it's pounds, we got to convert it to metric. So 154 divided by 2.2 will be 70 kilograms. And then 5'10", to get the height, it has to be in centimeters. So you'll get the inches. 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. So you'll get the inches, and 5 feet is 60 inches, plus 10 more inches is 70 inches. So 70 times 2.54 is approximately 178 centimeters. And then the age, I just put in 25 years of age. So calculating this out, first we'll calculate the 13.75 times the 70, and that will come up to 962.5. Then we'll calculate the 5 times the 178, and that will come up to 885. And then we'll calculate the 6.76 times 25, and that will come up to 169. You bring down all your signs, and then add the first 3, and then subtract the last, and that will come up with 1,750 kilocalories per day. Now, there is also another way to calculate our BMR, or resting metabolic rate. The difference here is, the difference here between the basal metabolic rate and the resting metabolic rate is when Mr. Benedict and colleagues did their study, they had the subjects stay inside in a controlled environment overnight, and they fasted for at least 12 hours. This resting metabolic rate, they didn't stay in. This is the Milfin-St. Jeor equation, and this was done in 1990. This is Milfin and the first 2 authors, St. Jeor, on this study, and they didn't have their subjects stay in overnight, and they weren't so strict on the fasting of the 12 hours. So here it's a little more simple equation, but as you'll notice that there is only approximately about a 50 kilocalorie difference. Here we have 1750, and this is almost 1700. So let me go over this equation briefly. Again, it's males and females an equation to come up with your BMR or your RMR. And this is, for males, it's 10 times your weight plus 6.25 times your height minus 5 times your age plus 5. And then I'm using the same parameters as I used on the Harris-Benedict equation, the 70, 178, 25. So 10 times 70 is 700. 6.25 times 178 is 1106. And the 5 times 25 is 125. So we'll add these two together, subtract that, and add the 5, and that will come up to 1,693 kilocalories per day for a 25-year-old person who's 5'10" and weighs approximately 70 kilograms. That was about 154 pounds. And the females, that's 10 times weight plus 6.25 times the height minus 5 times the age minus 161. And you just calculate that the same as we just did the males. Again, this is the link here to this study, Milfin-St. Jeor, to that study for the RMR, basal metabolic rate. Okay, there are other ways to calculate your basal metabolic rate, and that's with some quick estimates. And you'll see where these values come from in the next couple of slides, but first let me cover those. Men are a little greater than 1 kilocalorie per minute. And keep this in mind, kilocalorie per minute. That's going to constitute a lot of the slides coming up. So men are around 1.1 to 1.2 kilocalories per minute. So if you take 1.1 times 60 minutes in an hour times 24 hours a day equals approximately 1,440 kilocalories per day. And the upper end of that is 1.2 times the 60 times 24 equals 1,728 kilocalories per day. So you have approximately about a 300 kilocalorie range in between those. Or you can simply do, for men, 24 kilocalories per kilogram per day. And taking the same parameters as I was using, a 154-pound man divided by 2.2 kilograms equals the 70 kilograms. And then you'll just take the 70 kilograms times 24 hours equals 1,728 kilocalories per day, which is comparable to the upper limit of the values for men. And then women, it is a little less than 1 kilocalorie per minute. Men, it's a little greater than, and women, it's a little less than 1 kilocalorie per minute. So with women, the lower end of this is 0.8 kilocalories per minute and up to 1 kilocalorie per minute. So if you take the 0.8 times 60 minutes an hour times 24 hours a day will be 1,152 kilocalories per day. And then you'll take the 1 kilocalorie per minute times 60 times 24 is 1,440 kilocalories per day. And then women, it's just 23, another way to do it is 23 kilocalories per kilogram per day. And looking at 120 pounds, it is divided by 2.2 will come up with approximately 55 kilograms times the 24 hours in a day is approximately 1,320 kilocalories per day. So that's a quick estimate on your basal metabolic rate. Now, physical activity. It is the expenditure that varies and is influenced the most. It has a significant influence on weight gain and weight loss. The duration, frequency, and intensity of activity influence expenditure. Increasing activity increases the energy burned. Inactivity is a major cause of obesity. Physical activity is approximately, again, 25 to 40% of our energy expenditure. Okay, metabolic equivalence. This is not in your HUN 1201 class. You will see in your books that you'll have various physical activities with amount of kilocalories burned, dependent upon what physical activity that was. For example, biking for 3 miles an hour will have an amount of kilocalories burned, or jogging for so much time will also have the amount of kilocalories burned. And you may wonder, where do they come up with those values? Well, the way they get those is through metabolic equivalence, METs, for short. So the impact of various physical activities often describes in terms of METs. MET is multiples of an individual's resting oxygen uptake. One MET is defined as the rate of oxygen consumption of 3.5 milliliters per kilogram per minute in adults. So as we're resting, we consume 3.5 milliliters per kilogram per minute of oxygen. Now, taking this oxygen energy equivalent of 5 kilocalories per liter, as I was speaking a couple minutes ago, consumed equals, and that is equal to 0.0175 kilocalories per kilogram per minute. And where do we get this equal here? Well, we take this, the MET, one MET is equal to 3.5 milliliters per kilogram per minute, and multiply that by the 5 kilocalories per liter. We just changed this liter into milliliters, so the decimal place goes over 3 points. And now we multiply that together, and that's where we get this converting from milliliters per kilogram of oxygen to 5 kilocalories per liter into 0.0175 kilocalories per kilogram per minute. And this is how you'll see most all the physical activities in kilocalories per kilogram per minute, or kilocalories per pound per minute. And therefore, a rate of energy expenditure of 1 MET is equal to, and in men, it's equal to 1.2 kilocalories per minute for a man weighing 70 kilograms. And that is the 0.0175 kilocalories per kilogram per minute, and we multiply that by the weight of the man. And in women, it's 1.0 kilocalories per minute, and that's for a female weighing 57 kilograms. And that is 0.175 kilocalories per kilogram per minute. Multiply that by the 57, and you'll get the 1.0 kilocalories per minute. And this is a link to how they calculate these metabolic equivalents, and also it has many various physical activities that they've already calculated those out. So if we use these METs, metabolic equivalents, the rate of oxygen consumption of 3.5 milliliters per kilogram per minute. And then again, this is the 5 kilocalories per liter, and that is equal to the 0.0175 kilocalories per kilogram per minute. And that will give us our METs. So walking at 3 miles per hour is 3 METs. So that is 3 of these equals of these, and that will give you our energy expenditure. So a man walking at 3 miles per hour for 20 minutes who weighs 70 kilograms will spend. And we take this conversion of 0.0175 kilocalories per kilogram per minute and multiply that by the man's weight, 70 kilograms, and multiply that by his METs, and that will give you 4.04 kilocalories per minute. And then you multiply that by the amount of time that he has been exercising, and that will equal the total kilocalories, which is here is 20 minutes equals 80 kilocalories spent. So this is an article from the American Heart Association. It is a scientific statement on exercise standards for testing and training, and it's a very comprehensive article, lengthy article, about how they come up with these METs and all the other parameters involved with calculating exercise activities. Okay, this is the chart I was telling you about you see in your books. Excuse me. Okay, this is the chart I was telling you about you see in the books, and these are certain activities: walking, bicycling, and running. There's just a few of them I've listed here at 3.5 miles per hour, and this is the kilograms, and this is the standard system in pounds. And you look at 3.5 miles per hour is 0.077 kilocalories per kilogram per minute, and you can notice it goes up substantially. And if you're riding a bike, it goes up to 0.3 of a kilocalorie per kilogram per minute. And in running, it goes up the same. So you can see the increases of this. So let's do a sample calculation. If you run 13 miles per hour for 30 minutes and weigh 75 kilograms, you'll do the point that's 13 miles per hour, 0.099 times 75, you're 75 kilogram man, and you ran for 30 minutes. You'll come up with 223 kilocalories spent. And this is in the standard. If you run 13 miles per hour for 30 minutes and you weigh 160 pounds, then it's 0.045 times 160 pounds times 30 minutes is 216 kilocalories spent. Okay, thermic effect of food. This is energy used to digest, absorb, and metabolize food nutrients. Thermic effect of food is approximately 5 to 10%, again, of total calories consumed. And if on a 2,400 kilocalorie diet, the thermic effect of food is in between 120 and 240 kilocalories. 5% is the 120, 0.05 times 2,400 is 120, and 10%, 0.1 times 2,400 is 240 kilocalories. So that's the range of the thermic effect of food. And again, this is thought of as a tax to process the foods to nutrients. Thermic effect of food is highest for protein, then carbohydrates, and then fat. So you get the most amount of heat and energy loss for protein, then carbohydrates, and then fat. So adaptive thermogenesis. There are 3 areas for adaptive thermogenesis, and this is a process of heat production. Voluntary physical activity, you will lose heat there. Non-voluntary physical activity, which will include shivering. You shiver so much you start to warm yourself up and you'll lose heat there. Maintenance of muscle tone. This is not lying down. This is sitting up, standing. Your body continually maintains that posture, and it burns thermogenesis. Maintenance of that posture also will be a process of heat production. Also, brown adipose tissue. Adults don't have much. In infants, there is a considerable amount. I think it's like 5% of brown adipose tissue. And the brown adipose tissue has a rich supply of blood delivering nutrients to the tissues while releasing heat in that area. And they're really not sure the purpose of that. I believe it's to help regulate the temperature of the body. Diet-induced thermogenesis. Now, there are a few studies that have shown overeating in some subjects have increased thermogenesis. And then there are others that don't show that leading to weight loss. So, and the few studies that show overeating in subjects that have increased thermogenesis leading to weight loss, it shows that this is probably contributed to increased sympathetic nervous system activity. So this is the system that builds up for excitement and promotes energy consumption, burning energy. Okay, estimating energy needs. This is the EER. This, again, is the metric. This is the estimated energy requirement. And this, again, is a calculation in a metric system. Now, this is calculating the requirements of energy. And this is men 19 years and older and women 19 years and older. And these, again, are two different calculations. For men, it's 662 minus and 9.53 times the age, plus the physical activity times 15.91 times the weight, plus the 539.6 times the height. And similar for the women, the EER is 354 minus the 6.91 times the age, plus the physical activity times 9.36 times the weight, plus the 726 times the height. Now, this is the information needed for the estimated energy requirement. Is you need a physical activity estimate, you need the weight in kilograms, you need the height in meters. Now we're doing meters, so you'll take the inches and divide that by 39.4, and also age in years. So these are the factors used in estimating energy requirements for the EER, and this is for physical activity factors. Now most people will fall within these groups of factors. So sedentary people with no activity, men and women, their factor is 1. And low activity for men is 1.11, women is 1.12, and the differences start to come a little greater here with active being 1.25 and women 1.27, and very active at 1.48 and women at 1.45, being very active. Now, this is a sample calculation for women 19 years and older. This is a 25-year-old person who weighs 57 kilograms, and we have already converted the inches into meters. I've taken the height. So the equation here is, I've input this into the equations for the age, physical activity, weight, and height. And this physical activity here I used as 1.27, so I'm looking at an active female. So this female is 25 years of age, she's 57 kilograms, she's active at 1.27 and is 1.62 meters in height. So adding this together, first we'll multiply the 6.91 times 25 and bring that down. Then we'll multiply the 9.36 times the 57, bring that down, and then multiply the 7.26 times the height, 1.62 meters, and bring that down. Then we'll add these two together and then multiply that. We'll add those two together, bring that down, and then we multiply that together, and that gives us that. On this side of the equation, on this side, we have the 354. We brought the 6.91, multiplied that by 25, and brought that down. Now we simply subtract that, and we have the 181.25, and we just add these two together, and that will give us the 2,352 kilocalories per day. So that sounds about right. That's 2,352 kilocalories a day for an active female. Okay, now you'll also see these. This is based on energy requirements equations from the Institute of Medicine, Dietary Reference Intakes for Energy, and the National Academies Press. These are basically estimated calorie intakes for different physical activity levels. And you will see these sometimes in books at ranges. Say, for example, if you're a female between 14 and 18, sometimes you'll see these ranges anywhere between 1,800 to 24. They'll just eliminate all this stuff in the middle and give you the lower end and the higher end in some publications. Now here, again, if you are a male 19 to 30 years of age, you might see this as 2,400 kilocalories to 3,000 kilocalories. And that will be from sedentary to active. But this link here will take you to the USDA, and with the dietary guidelines, it has calculated all these out already. And this is a guide, again, a guide for calorie intakes. And you can compare those, like I just said a second ago, a female at 25 years of age who is active. So let's take that and look at a female who is 25 years of age who is active, and that is 2,400 kilocalories, where we came up with 2,352, so it's just about 50 kilocalories difference. So it's right there. Okay, body composition. Body weight. There are tables that are used as guides to estimate weight for height for healthy weight. They're derived from large population studies and used as rough guides. They're estimates of weight that are associated with health and longevity. However, they may not indicate the healthiest weight for each individual. These are tables from the Metropolitan Life from 1983, and they indicate your height and your estimated healthy weight dependent upon your frame size. Okay, so determining a healthy weight. Under a physician's care, you can establish a personal healthy weight based on your personal weight history. What is the lowest weight maintained for more than 1 year? What weight was maintained without constantly feeling hungry? And a pattern of your fat distribution, healthy lifestyle contribution, and personal and family history for weight and related diseases. So a perspective on weight. Aim for a personal healthy weight. Avoid unrealistic goals. Don't set goals that are too difficult to accomplish. Just set short-term goals and then meet your long-term goals. Listen to the body's cues for hunger. Eat a healthy diet. Be physically active. And practice size acceptance. Acknowledge the fact that you are genetically the way you are, but you want to make that weight the best for you, the best healthy weight. Okay, and here are numerous weight-related conditions: hypertension, elevated low-density lipoproteins, and elevated blood glucose levels, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular diseases such as coronary heart disease and stroke, bone and joint disorders because of the amount of weight on those joints, and gallstones because of the micelles in the gallbladder, cancers, infections, vision problems, premature death, increased risk of accidents because you are now a heavier weight and you're not as agile, probably as used to be, shorter stature, increased pregnancy risk, liver damage, menstrual irregularities, infertility, and for males, erectile dysfunction. Okay, body mass index. This is a BMI. BMI is weight for height standards and not necessarily indicate body composition. Now, there are two ways to calculate your BMI. This is with the standard or the metric calculations. So the standard is your body weight, which is in pounds, times 703, divided by the height squared in inches. So if you weigh 126 pounds, you multiply that by 703. And if you are 64 inches tall, you square that together, 64 times 64, and then you'll divide that by the sum here, and you come up with approximately a BMI of 22. And again, with the metric system, if you weigh 57 kilograms and you're approximately 1.62 meters tall, and this is in meters, and you square that, 1.62 times 1.62, and then you divide that 57 by that sum there, or the product, excuse me, and you'll come up with the 22 BMI. So the body mass index for underweight, a BMI is less than 18.5. A healthy weight for BMI is between 18.5 and 24.9. Overweight is a BMI of 25 to 29.9, and obese is a BMI of 30 to 39.9, and severely obese is greater than 40. Now, overweight adults should strive for the upper end of a healthy BMI of 25. So if you're overweight, you should strive for the upper end, the upper end of a healthy weight, which is 24.9. You should strive for that. And whereas a BMI of 25 would be an upper limit for those within the normal range. So if you're at normal range, then that BMI would be the upper limit. So you should probably strive for something in the middle. And severely underweight adults should strive for the lower end of a healthy weight. So if you're severely underweight, less than 18.5, you should be striving for at least 18.5. So you're trying to get up to the lowest parameter of that underweight. A BMI under 17 will increase risk of illness, decrease physical output, and decrease reproductive function. So there are many tables out there that you can actually look at to determine your body mass index. And again, this isn't relative to body composition, it's just weight for height. And here we have the metric on the left here and the bottom. So this is height in meters and weight in kilograms. So if you are approximately 1.6 meters, as we did earlier, and about 70 kilograms, you'll have a BMI that's in between 25 and 30. And here we have the standard system, weight in pounds and height in feet and inches. Okay, percent body fat. The total weight of fat divided by the total weight. The total body fat includes essential body fat and stored body fat. Percent body fat ranges are between 2% and 70%. And a man with a healthy body fat is in between 8 to 24% body fat, and a male in excess of body fat is greater than 25%. And these values, women 21 to 35% being healthy percent body fat, and greater than 35% is being excessive. And these values come from the clinical guidelines on the identification, evaluation, and treatment of overweight and obesity in adults. This is an evidence report from 1998, and healthy percentages body fat ranges from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. These are two articles relating to what is a healthy percentage of body fat for men and women. Okay, this is a graphical representation of percent body fat. You can look and pretty much see where you would fit into this. I know we each have different body types. One is taller and shorter. Some are a little wider. But this will give you a general overview of what 8% percent body fat looks like, whereas the upper end of 35% body fat for a male and 45% for female, and the lower end at 15% body fat. Body fat and obesity. There are two characteristic patterns of how body fat is stored on the body that leads to obesity. And those two patterns will lead to two shapes, the gynoid, which is a pear shape, and android, which is an apple shaped. And this is the pear shape. It is mainly on the buttocks and the thighs. And the apple shape is abdominal body fat. So upper body fat, central obesity, or android obesity, is predominantly found in men and less in women past menopause. It is characterized by a large abdomen with small buttocks and thighs. It's promoted by high blood testosterone, excessive alcohol consumption, and smoking. Abdominal fat is released into the liver and promotes inflammation in the body. So this central abdominal obesity is highly metabolic, meaning it goes in and out of the circulatory system, and it gives a chance for the low-density lipoproteins to build up in the arterial walls, the blood vessels, and it also promotes inflammation, like I just said. Now, women greater than 35 inches in the waist is considered obese, and men greater than 40 inches in the waist is considered obese. And the android obesity also increases risk for cardiovascular disease, hypertension, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. So central obesity, this is central obesity, and subcutaneous fat, it's stored just below the skin, and on the backside, this is subcutaneous fat, and it is stored just below the skin. Whereas visceral fat, it is intra-abdominal fat, and it's stored around the organs, and the majority is in the abdominal area, where around all the organs. So that is visceral fat. Lower body fat, or gynoid obesity, predominantly found in women, is characterized by a small abdomen, large buttocks, and large thighs. It's encouraged by female hormones, estrogen and progesterone. There are fewer health risks with the gynoid shape than there are with the android shape. Juvenile onset obesity. Fat cells begin developing in the third trimester of pregnancy. Juvenile onset obesity can begin developing in infancy or childhood, and adipose cells start increasing in number. Adipose cells have a long lifespan, so the increased number of cells will remain. And the increased number of adipose cells and their function to store fat as efficiently as possible makes it difficult for weight loss. Adult onset obesity, there is less increase in the number of adipose cells, and the adipose cells become larger with greater storage capacity. However, if weight gain continues, the number of adipose cells can increase. So the obesity and nature debate. Genes account for up to 70% of the weight differences between people. If one parent is obese, there is a 50% chance that their children will also be obese. When both parents are obese, their children will have an 80% chance of being obese. And genes affect the metabolic rate, fuel use, brain chemistry, and the body shape. And this is a link from the Human Health Services for these statistics I just went over. Also, when identical twins are raised apart, they still have similar weights. So if they're raised completely apart from each other, they will still show similar weight patterns and weight deposits on their bodies. And this is an article, the body mass index of twins who have been reared apart, from the New England Journal of Medicine in 1990. And also, there is a thrifty gene, which promotes more fat storage to protect against famine. Now, this is a study that was done a long time ago, 1962. It is a landmark study. And James Neal indicates that back in the past, when we had times of feast or famine, our body would undergo a process to where it has went through a mutation with the genes in order to protect us from a famine. So in times of plenty, our genes have been modified in order to be more efficient, to keep the fat in our body so we would use it more efficiently. And that is called the thrifty gene. So set point theory advocates, they suggest we have a genetically predetermined body weight or body fat. It indicates weight is regulated by the body, and some of the examples that the weight is regulated by the body is some research suggests the hypothalamus regulates body fat. Leptin, which is a hormone, it provides communication between the fat cells and the hypothalamus. Also, the body resists weight change when calorie intake is reduced. The thyroid blood concentration decreases, resulting in a slower metabolic rate, and weight loss decreases calorie expenditure. So as we lose weight, it becomes harder to expend those calories, to burn those calories, because the body starts protecting the calories that it has. Body stores fat more efficiently, increases expression of lipoprotein lipase, and, lipoprotein lipase is the enzyme that cleaves the fatty acids off of the triglyceride and absorbs them into the body. So it will increase the expression. The body will make more lipoprotein lipase. Therefore, we have the ability to shift the set point weight. Now, this is the set point theory. They say, again, that our body is predetermined, genetically predetermined to have a specific body weight, and they go along with some of the things that the body does in order to protect that weight. However, there are opponents of that set point theory, and they say that weight does not remain constant. It slowly increases as we age to old age. And there are different environments, the physical, emotional, and the social, which can influence weight status. And they suggest a settling point. So as we grow older, we gain more weight because we become a little more sedentary. We're not as active as we used to be. So we're starting to settle into more of the weight, and then our environment that surrounds us, our lifestyle and our emotions and society, we begin to settle into that point. So people settle into a particular weight based on current circumstances and acceptance of their body weight. Obesity and nature. Environmental factors influence weight. Obesity and nurture. Environmental factors influence weight. Learned behaviors, eating and activity level influence body weight. And in support of this, if you look at the ratio of obesity epidemic in the past 50 years, you can tell that there has been a great change in the past 50 years in relation to the increased amount of obesity in this country. Whereas if you look at the change in the genes in the past 50 years, the genes really haven't had that much change in the past 50 years as compared to the rate of obesity has. So here we're talking about nurture, the environment, moreover than the genetics. Adult female obesity is related to childhood obesity and weight gain during pregnancy. Prevalent patterns of male obesity appears after age 30. And poverty, socioeconomic status is associated with obesity influences, such as increased intake of inexpensive, high-calorie foods, limited access to fruits and vegetables, and smoking, sleep, stress, and meals on the go also are contributed to poverty and a lower socioeconomic status that leads to obesity. Now, overview of nature and nurture. So, obesity is nurture, allowing nature to express itself. Now, let me say that another way. Obesity is our environment allowing our genes to express itself. Location of fat is influenced by genetics. Children of obese parents have increased risk of obesity. And activity and moderation of calorie intake promotes a healthier weight. Weight loss and weight management. Excuse me. Okay, dieting. Obesity is a chronic disease, so you want to treat it as such. You don't want to try to use an acute treatment on a chronic problem. Treatment of overweight and obesity requires long-term lifestyle changes. Dieters, are misdirected by the many different diets, fad diets, there's many of them out there, and emphasis is on weight loss rather than a healthy lifestyle. They have unrealistic weight expectations, and people see diets as a quick fix, something short-term for a long-term problem. After the short-term weight loss, the previous eating behaviors resume with weight gain as our body, remember, it tries to more efficiently store that fat. So the more food we eat, it starts storing that fat more efficiently, and it's harder to get rid of it because we decrease in our calorie expenditure. Okay, a good weight loss plan, maintenance of a healthy weight. This is a weight loss triad, and it takes all three of these parameters. It requires behavioral changes, physical activity, and control your calories. It takes all three of these items in order to promote a successful weight loss plan. Without one of these, you really don't have the ability for a good weight loss or weight maintenance program. So you need these behavioral changes for long-term process, physical activity for a healthy lifestyle, and decreasing the calories and control the calorie intakes. Okay, the dietary guidelines for Americans, 2010 recommendations. They prevent obesity through improved eating and physical activity behaviors. Control total calorie intake, balance calories to manage weight, increase physical activity, and maintain calorie balance during each life stage. Okay, control calories. A sedentary society requires less calories. The United States, we are a post-industrial society, and we are living in our information age. And we sit at the computer a lot. We exchange a lot of information. So we are a sedentary society, and we require less calories because we're not that active as we used to be. So there are different approaches to dieting. One, there's decreased fat, decreased trans fat and saturated fat. There's decreased carbohydrates, which is a decrease in refined carbohydrates, and increased protein diets. However, a low-fat, high-fiber diet has shown to be the most successful in long-term studies. No diet has a metabolic advantage. Read food labels to differentiate between nutrient density and energy density. Get in the habit of reading all your labels. Keep a food log. 24-hour dietary intake of what you've eaten in one day is a quick assessment of your dietary habits. And then a little longer term, a 3-day or even a 7-day food log will give you a better view of what you're eating and when you're eating and how you're eating it. Understand portion sizes and be conscious of them. Excuse me. Regular physical activity. It is necessary to achieve and maintain a healthy weight. Expending at least 100 to 300 kilocalories above a sedentary lifestyle can lead to weight loss. It boosts your self-esteem, and if you add weight resistance, it will increase the lean body mass, your metabolic rate, increase your bone health, and the use of your fat. Physical activity recommendations. This is from the Center of Disease Control. This is the link here, and these are the recommendations that they have for physical activity. And it's 60 to 90 minutes of a moderate intensity physical activity daily. And moderate intensity is like riding a bicycle, jogging, whereas real intense would be spinning or sprinting or stuff like that. And work up to 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity aerobic activity. And I had a professor in one of my classes that she would always say our bodies are genetically built to walk 3 miles every day. What it takes to lose 1 pound. Body fat contains approximately 3,500 kilocalories per pound. And how do we calculate that? I believe we've done that once before, but the USDA food database reference of butter as 3,255 kilocalories per pound. So that is butter. However, our body in 1 pound is 454 grams, and our body is approximately 87% fat. So as far as a pound of fat, it's about 87% fat. So basically you just do the 0.87 times the 454, and you come up with approximately 395 grams of actual fat in a pound of fat. And then do that 9 kilocalories per gram for the energy, and you'll come up with 3,555 kilocalories of fat per pound. And then they just basically round that to 3,500 kilocalories to lose 1 pound of fat. So you must have an energy deficit of about 3,500 kilocalories to lose a pound per week. So in other words, if you lose 500 kilocalories a day for 7 days, then you can lose 1 pound, which is 3,500 kilocalories each week. The 2010 Dietary Guidelines, Behaviors and Practices to Help Manage Body Weight. Focus on the total number of calories you consume. Keep track. Once you start looking at the food groups and your food labels and getting an idea of the calorie contents and different foods and stuff like that, you'll get good at it. Monitor your food intake. When eating out, choose smaller portions or lower calorie options. Prepare, serve, and consume smaller portions of foods, beverage, especially those high in calories. Eat a nutrient-dense breakfast, You know, I eat breakfast every morning. So I notice a lot of people don't. But if I eat a good breakfast in the morning, I'm really not hungry until a little bit around lunchtime or a little bit after lunchtime. Whereas if I miss a breakfast, I'm really hungry coming around lunchtime, and I'm gonna binge. I'm gonna eat a lot. So I will consume a lot of calories if I don't eat my breakfast. Limit screen time. This is television and the computer. And here is a link to the dietary guidelines where these come from for your behaviors and practices to manage body weight. And specifically, this is on page 19. It's a lengthy article. Okay, behavior modification. This is huge. Modify eating behaviors. And if you have problem eating behaviors, that is a disorder. So the way psychologists look at this is it through antecedents, the behavior, and then the consequence. Antecedents is something before the behavior, and then the consequence is after the behavior. So how do we look at that? Excuse me one second. So this is behavior modification strategies, and these psychologists, they place the problem into perspective and organize it to where they can place it into intervention, into steps, and these are the steps of intervention. And one is chain breaking, stimulus control, cognitive restructuring, contingency management, and self-monitoring. Starting with chain breaking, this is the ability to identify two connected behaviors that lead to overeating. Say, for example, you just finished eating an ample dinner, a very large dinner, and you're starting to feel a little tired, so you go sit in your favorite chair, and you're watching TV, and each one of these things that I'm talking about is a behavior. You eat dinner, you go sit in a chair, that's a behavior. You start watching TV, that's another behavior. You're starting to get a little tired, that's another behavior. So you decide to go to the kitchen, that's a behavior. You open the refrigerator, that's another behavior. And you get out some pecan pie, and that's a behavior. So what we're trying to do in this chain breaking is break one of those behaviors so that won't lead to that pecan pie. So basically after you eat dinner, go out for a walk. Go out for a walk or clean something in the house, organize something, be prepared for your next day. Change the behavior that you fell into in a disorder. Chain breaking is the change of behavior that separates the two behaviors. Okay, stimulus control. Environmental management is what it basically is. That's altering the environment to promote healthy eating behaviors. Taking charge of your temptations. I like to have fruits sitting around the house if I can, instead of having, as soon as you open up the cabinet, there's some real chocolate cookies, there's some brownies in the refrigerator as soon as you open that up. And, you know, it's best to take the real calorie-dense foods and put them toward the back of the refrigerator and have something more readily available closer to you and inside. So that stimulates your appetite instead of having those calorie-dense foods stimulating an appetite and then consuming a lot of calories. So that is managing your environment. Also, there's cognitive restructuring. This is changing your frame of mind regarding eating. Now, for example, this is an example, the all or nothing thinking. You develop rational and positive self-statements to counteract negative thoughts. For example, a negative thought could be, wow, I ate a slice of pecan pie, so I guess my diet is over. I ate 2 slices, and I might as well just quit because it's worthless. I just can't get over it. Or you can have a positive thought. You did eat a slice of pecan pie, but it's okay. So I'm not perfect. 1 slice of pie will not ruin my day. It will not change my whole new eating behaviors that I have learned. So you use principles of nutrition, such as variety, balance, and moderation to get you back on track. Also, contingency management. This is forming a plan of action in response to a high-risk eating situation. Rehearse in advance appropriate responses to the pressure of eating out at parties, dinners, businesses, going to a buffet with some of your friends. You know, there's one thing that will always work. You can simply say, no thanks, I'm not hungry. There's also another thing that we went over in one of my classes that it's a paradigm, a different way of thinking of preloading. And what that is basically you consume a small amount of nutrient-dense foods before the event. So you're not so hungry. So you have all these external stimuli stimulating your appetite, and then you start eating a lot. So if you have preloaded a little bit, then that will curb your appetite and decrease your hunger. Self-monitoring. Track foods eaten and the conditions that affect that eating behavior. It helps you understand your eating habits by increasing awareness and removing denial. Pinpoint problem areas, and that will develop analytical and organizational skills. When you start taking control of your diet, it becomes a life. It becomes part of your life. You know, we very seldom second guess what we put in our bodies, but we're always very careful of what we put in our cars, for example. We pull up to a pump and you know that you need $20 worth of gas, and that will take you a certain mileage or last you for the week. Well, nowadays it takes you about 100, but anyway, you're cognizant of the amount of gas that you put in your car, so be cognizant of about the amount of energy you put in your body, because your body, it stays with you. It is yours for life. You only have one chance. So, weight maintenance. This is the big thing. Prevent relapse. It is the most difficult part of weight control. Plan for a lapse and do not overreact. You're most likely going to have a relapse, but plan for that. And if a lapse occurs, new food habits should turn you back to the plan. So what you do is you make one change, recognize that change, make it part of your life, even make a contract with yourself. I'm making this change for the day. I will no longer eat, for a quick example, eat 3 cookies a day. I'll eat 2 or 1 cookies a day. And then you make that part of your life. Once you have become successful with that one change, then go on to another change. And this is how you change your behaviors. And through that, you can, even if you have a relapse in one of those, you'll always can revert back to several of those that you have been working on. So continue to practice newly learned behaviors. Maintenance of weight loss requires the 3 M's: motivation, movement, and monitoring. Social support. Support, encouragement, and praise from friends and families is always helpful, especially when you've been working so hard and you are overcoming some of your obstacles. Weight loss professionals can keep dieters accountable. And groups of dieters can provide empathy, because it does take work. Diet medications. There is phentermine, which is Fastin or ionomin, and it is an amphetamine-like in its ability to release noradrenaline and dopamine. It prolongs the activity of epinephrine and norepinephrine in the brain, and it decreases your appetite. It's not recommended for long-term use because of the dependency that may come of that. And short-term use is 12 weeks or less. And it's recommended for people 18 years of age and older. There's orlistat, which is Xenical. It is approved for long-term use. It inhibits the fat digestive enzyme lipoprotein lipase. And lipoprotein lipase, it is a large protein, and it has 3 protein residues at the base. It's like a basket, and it has these protein residues where these triglycerides will come down, and their ester bonds will be exposed, and the lipoprotein lipase can hydrolyze those ester bonds. Well, orlistat, it will block that ability to hydrolyze those ester bonds. So the dietary fat is excreted with the feces, and that's called steatorrhea. And a side effect is gas and bloating. You must still control fat intake and malabsorption. You will get malabsorption of fat-soluble vitamins. So you'll need to supplementate at bedtime. And there are low doses of orlistat, which is called Ali, and it is available over the counter. Some other diet medications. Sibutramine, that's Meridia. It enhances norepinephrine and serotonin activity in the brain. It prolongs a reduced sense of hunger, and it has been associated with increased cardiovascular events and strokes, so therefore it has been withdrawn from the market in 2010. Treatment of severe obesity. That's a BMI greater than or equal to 40, or 100 pounds over the healthy weight. And one of those treatments is a very low-calorie diet, VLCDs. The low carbohydrate and high proteins in this VLCD. And the low carbohydrates is around 30 to 120 grams of carbohydrates, and with 70 to 100 grams of protein. It is recommended for people with greater than 30% above their healthy weight, and it is in between 400 to 800 kilocalories per day, predominantly liquids, and that is very, very low calories. It will cause ketosis. The fat breakdowns will lead to the ketones in your blood and decrease your pH, increase the acidity It requires careful physician monitoring, and health risks include cardiac problems and gallstones. Also, there is bariatric surgery, and this is the medical treatment for obesity. There is the adjustable gastric banding. This is the lap band right here. They put it, it reduces the opening of the esophagus to the stomach. Right here, the esophagus comes to the upper part of the stomach, and it actually has a pump on it. It decreases the amount of foods eaten, and the band can be inflated or deflated. So you can decrease it and open it up. And it is more effective than the very low-calorie diets for people 50 pounds over their healthy weight. The vertical banded gastroplasty or stomach stapling. It is the most common surgical procedure for treating severe obesity. It reduces the stomach size to 30 milliliters, and that is from 4 cups to 1 ounce. Very small. Overeating leads to rapid satiety and will result in vomiting. You get full very fast. This is the esophagus, and then they just staple around the stomach. They can do it a couple different ways. They staple it here, and here you have a straight shot going into the small intestine. So approximately 75% of severe obese people will lose 50% of their excess body weight. And the criteria for gastroplasty is, again, the BMI greater than 40, or a BMI between 35 and 40 with weight-related conditions. And then obese for greater than 5 years with no surgical attempts at weight loss, and there is no history of alcoholism or major psychiatric disorders. It is a costly procedure, and it is in between $17,000 to $35,000. I lost one of my zeros. And follow-up surgery is needed after the weight loss to remove the stretched skin, and it requires a major lifestyle changes. Underweight. This is a BMI less than 18.5, and there's a variety of causes: cancer, infectious disease, GI, gastrointestinal disorders, genetics, eating disorders, excessive dieting, or excessive physical activity. And it is associated with underweight, severe underweight. It's associated with increased amount of deaths, menstrual dysfunction, pregnancy complications, slow recovery from illness or surgery. The treatment for underweight: intake of energy-dense foods, high in vegetable fats and low saturated fat. Encourage regular meals and snacks as many times as you can through the day. Start to reduce your activity for excessive active people and increase your portion sizes. So it's the opposite of trying to lose weight. You're trying to eat as many times as you can with nutrient-dense foods and also energy-dense foods. Increase the portion sizes, like I said. Add muscle mass through strength training while adding calories. So as you use weight resistance, you'll start adding lean mass, and it will cause you to start eating more. You'll be hungry. Okay, unreliable diets, fad diets. They claim to promote a quick weight loss. They have limited food selections. They use testimonials as evidence of weight loss, which is the weakest form of evidence for weight loss. They cure everything, these diets. They have cure-alls. They recommend expensive supplements to the diet that most likely that you will have to buy from that organization. They have no permanent lifestyle changes advocated. They're critical of the scientific community. They say things about the science that has come about, and they also say there's no need for exercise. There are types of popular diets. There is the low or restricted carbohydrates. There's the carbohydrate-focused diets. There's low-fat approaches. There are many novelty diets and meal replacements. There are also high-protein, low-carbohydrate diets, and they don't count the kilocalories. They satisfy the hunger. They follow a plan. There are limited choices. There's too much fat, too much protein, too little of everything else. And it's not good for the body's perspective, where you have to have variety, balance, and moderation. Low carbohydrate, ketogenic diets. These have adverse side effects: nausea, fatigue, constipation, Elevated uric acid may exacerbate kidney disease and cause inflammation in the joints. You have a stale, foul taste in the mouth, bad breath, and in pregnant women, fetal harm and stillbirth.